Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. And today's exciting for me because I get to sit in, let's call it St. Pete's Oval Office. That's what I'm going to call it, St. Pete's Oval Office. So when I say that, you have to know like it's probably the highest political office in our city, which is the mayor of St. Petersburg, a guy that I know named Kenneth T. Welch that has legacy in our city. You guys know I'm extremely South St. Pete centric, considering I wasn't even born here, but I don't know, the vibration is all the way right for me. And now we get to sit with somebody who was born here. This is their legacy. And we get to find out, how does a young person born and raised in South St. Pete become mayor of the city, among other things. I think that's just one small part of it. So, hello, Mayor Welch.
Hey, Carla. Good to be with you.
Formerly Commissioner Welch.
Yes, ma'am.
The son of an accountant.
And this is all providential, but right before you came, Rita gave me this picture that somebody gave her.
Oh, wow.
And, that's my dad on 16th Street.
Oh, wow.
And it's providential.
I'm going to add that picture in so everybody can see it.
Definitely.
But that's incredible. Before we go any further, I know you in some ways, but if I were to ask you to introduce yourself to everyone else, like people in St. Pete and away, wherever. But I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself because I'm going to take this opportunity to say that Prince, the Prince. See, that's how you know I know you. So, wow. Prince, if Prince were to introduce you, what things would you want him to say about you? What would you want us to know about you?
See, some things have to remain confidential. You're going down to Prince. But when I think of Prince, he was a real musician. I remember him saying before he passed away, he was doing a concert and he said, real music by real musicians. And that just brings me back to, despite all of the nonsense we see in our nation, and right down to our own communities, you got to stay focused on what's real. And this picture of my dad is another good example of that. I was thinking the other day, my dad, he had always had a nice car, had a Cadillac and other cars, but he would let me drive that as a 15, 16, 17-year-old.
Wow.
And he'd drive around this old beat up little Ford station wagon. And he preferred that. And I said, Dad, why are you driving that car and you've got these other cars? And he says it's just an open way to get from one point to another, right? He always kept it real. And even at his office, he was always talking to folks who maybe had gone on a different path. That's how he got into things like rehabilitation for returning citizens. For ex-offenders.
See, you know what's funny? I never knew that.
He wrote his thesis on it. His thesis was on how you use vocational technical education to reduce crime in Black neighborhoods and reduce recidivism.
Oh, wow.
That's how he ended up helping create what is now P-Tech, was in St. Pete Votech.
Oh, wow.
And I watched him.
I didn't know any of that, so this is information. But he would have guys
come in the office on 16th Street where Perk is
Which
now.
is now Perk. That's why I'm saying I didn't know this, so this now makes sense for why is Perk there at that location.
My mom, after my dad passed, decided to sell it to Perk under appraised value because she wanted to continue the legacy of what that office was about.
Aligned
it wasn't
with his
going to be a
vision.
bar or anything like that. But that was his history. And getting back to being real, when I grew up as a boy working in that office, so it was a tax office.
Right.
And they did payroll, they did individual income taxes. A lot of folks, came through to get their taxes done. And I'd be working in the back filing, and then I was joking with Rita, I became the computer IT guy when things became digitized. But there'd always be this, rough looking guys come in,
right.
And he'd give them odd jobs. And I didn't know at the time, I'm like, who are these guys coming in? He said, don't worry about it. He's a good guy. But all those guys were ex-offenders that he was giving opportunities to.
Wow.
So when I think about how Prince would introduce me, I hope it would be as a real South St. Pete person who's focused on doing the right thing for our community.
With some guitar strings behind it.
I can do a little guitar. I'm not going to do Let's Go Crazy, because that's not the song we want.
That's not it.
But he's got a few that would apply.
But a real South St. Pete and a husband, a devoted husband. Carla Bristol will say that. That's what I've witnessed. That's what I've seen. And
I married a Gibbs Gladiator.
A girl.
That's a long story.
A girl dad, as they say.
Girl dad. Two
girl
daughters.
Dad.
Yeah.
And now a puppy lover.
You see Sonny right there.
Look, so in the office, if I were to paint the picture, you got the corporate desk, cherry wood or something. It's beautiful. The beautiful leather chairs. I see the Jabari Reed piece that was done for the election, prominently placed here. Mayor, really, where is the piece that? Remember when we had the paint party, the fundraising paint party, and myself and another friend did a piece like Women for Welch?
Yes.
Where's that?
I don't know.
We're gonna call Terry Lipsy Scott.
It
was at the Woodson.
We have it.
Oh, really?
But as you can see, we're running out of space on the walls, so.
I don't care. I want it on a door. I want it somewhere.
This is in month 18, so I don't know what we're going to do the rest of the 2 or 3 years here.
So you and I know each other some. We've had coffee many times over the years.
Having coffee now, we should have that for the record.
Well, what kind of coffee? Is it Kawa coffee? Everybody knows
it is.
He loves
This is actually Kawa, yeah.
But I've introduced him to Craft Cafe, and I love Craft.
And Southside.
And Southside, yep, we've met there. Let me ask you, so, we know I had the art gallery, we know other things, but you always somehow made time for me to sit down and talk to me. Why is that?
Because, again, getting back to being real, I saw your focus on uplifting the community and being involved.
Thank you.
And whenever I see someone that is real and trying to make a difference, trying to make an impact, I want to be supportive of that. And there's a difference between those kind of folks and then folks who have a separate agenda that's only focused on personal gain.
Right. Thank you for that.
And you have to be able to recognize that and ask the question, we've got these 6 principles,
right.
And one of those is impact. At the end of the day, whatever we do has to have a community impact. It's not about an individual's personal gain, but what does it do for the community? And I saw that in you. Obviously, you do your research. You aren't shy about your opinion.
Nope.
But all that is good. We need folks to actually be engaged and be involved in the community, and not just when there's a crisis, right? Because then everybody shows up and for good reason. But then where's the sustained effort to make an impact? That's when it gets tough.
Yeah, and that's part of what this is about. This is about helping people to understand what it means to have meaningful connections. And what people tend to do is they tend to find you or find anyone when they need something, and then they wonder why there's a distinction of not having a relationship. And relationships are built over time. And some people only have relationships based on sororities or fraternities and other things. But this idea of how do you build and develop meaningful relationships. I remember when you were on County Commission, you appointed me to the Historic Commission. And I'm like, Sometimes I'm thinking I'm just busy doing me. And then I get this call about, hey, would you like to serve in this capacity? And I was more taken aback at this person who was the county commissioner who had already been meeting with, saying, hey, I would like to see you serve in this capacity. And I enjoy, until you came off county commission, I served in that capacity, which was great. But do you remember how you either first met me or how we first connected, or what was your first memory? Everybody knows I don't have a great memory. I have a very selective memory. I don't even store information that way. So I rely on everybody else to give it back to me.
You're an Android user, right? So
huh?
You're an Android user, so
well,
yeah, you store things.
And by the way, I just met and somebody who works for Samsung, and part of what I asked her, what does she want in return? Because I'm like, my device is so fierce, I don't even know all the capabilities of it. And so we're probably going to have to sit you down and show you some capabilities.
So are you telling me you're doing this podcast on an Android?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That changes a lot of things.
Shout out to Samsung. Shout out to Samsung.
So were you on the Deuces?
I was. Remember, I had Gallery 909. I opened in 2014.
But is that when we met? Because I remember it was like street festivals on.
Okay, so I created the Black Arts and Film Festival. I think it was in 2015, maybe was the first one, and then I had the second one where I shut the entire street down. The first one was in that corner.
We met before that, though. Right?
I feel like we did.
Yeah.
I feel like we did, but I don't know. I don't know when, because I legit don't know.
Maybe it's through Bob Devin Jones?
I sat on that board after the gallery was opened. So you don't remember. So you're a Carla Bristol. Like you don't remember. It'll come to you later.
It's like you've always been here. So
this is, and it's so funny because I've been in St. Petersburg since 1996, right? I moved there in 96. I gave birth to my son right here at Bayfront in 96, but I was corporate Carla. I was tied into corporate America. When I first got introduced to the Woodson Museum, it was because they were raising funds to build a garden in the back. And someone else reached out to me and said, hey, could you donate money? And I'm like, yes. And then if you would go into the Woodson, you would see this brick on the table that says, we need art. And my name was right under it.
Okay.
Because one of the bricks that I bought, I think about 20 of them, got delivered late. And so that one ended up as a sample brick on the table. But that's how I got connected to the Woodson, was when through a project with the Chamber Leadership St. Pete that they were doing. But it could have been the Woodson. I used to do the ultimate game night to raise money for the Woodson. And that's what ultimately led me to open up the gallery. But so you don't recall?
I do not.
So before becoming a county commissioner, what did you do?
So born and raised here, third generation. Went to Melrose Elementary in the last year of segregation, which was 71, I believe. Okay. And then the schools were integrated. So I ended up going to Bay Point Elementary, Middle, and then of course the Lakewood High School.
That's where my daughter went. So let me not give the That's a
Spartans for life. Then I went to USF St. Pete. Back in the day, though, you couldn't get a 4-year degree at USF St. Pete. You had to do your first 2 years in Tampa.
Okay.
So I did my first 2 years in Tampa, came back to St. Pete for my final 2 years in accounting. And then I fulfilled a lifelong dream of going to FAMU for my master's.
Why was that a lifelong dream?
Rattlers. My dad was a Rattler.
Okay, so there it goes.
Now two of his siblings were Bethune-Cookman Wildcats, so we were a divided family. But just the history of FAMU and the School of Business and Industry, very highly rated business school, and their grads usually have their pick of where they go. I always knew I was going to come back to St. Pete, though. I was number 2 in our class, MBA class. And Florida Power, which is now Duke Energy, was up there recruiting. And said absolutely. And came back, worked for then Florida Power as an accountant from like 87 to to 99.
So we don't even have to ask what kind of student you were. You weren't up there partying. You were there head down.
Oh,
some partying. What?
No. By that time, I was working on an MBA. It was
so number 2 in your class tells me you were focused.
Well, I had to be, because SBI is its own culture.
Mm-hmm.
And then for me, coming from an undergrad to SBI, I had to prove myself.
Okay.
And so I remember Paul Brown was number 1, guy from California, just brilliant. But it was a family. That class reminds me of my fraternity, Omega Psi Phi, that you have to kind of go through the fire, but once you're accepted, you're accepted. But came back home and worked for Florida Power for that 87 to 99 period. In between that, I worked for Raymond James for about a year.
Okay.
As a supervisor in software development. And then, 98, I ran for school board.
Okay.
And again, remember my dad, all of his siblings, all 3, were educators in Pinellas County schools. His brother Johnny was a principal at Perkins. Brother Clarence was a longtime teacher in science at Azalea. Mm-hmm. Sister Glenette was a longtime teacher. So all I saw was education, and believe that's really, and still believe that's the way we can make the most impact and make the best investments in our communities, by getting our young folks educated. So I ran in 98. I lost that race, but coming out of that, I believe God always has a plan for you. I was appointed to the St. Pete Junior College Board of Trustees.
Wait, back up a second. Yeah. Did you... So forget the fact that your uncles were all educators. Mm-hmm. Like, what motivated you to want to run for office in the first place?
So you remember my dad was the second African-American city council person elected in the city. And that was 81.
You the only son? How many siblings?
Me, my oldest sister passed, Janice, in 2020. I have a sister, Carolyn, in Georgia, and younger sister, Katrina, who's here.
So you're the only man?
I'm the only boy, yeah.
So some of it is following in your father's footsteps.
It's seeing that education makes the most impact to our young people, having opportunities to succeed. And so growing up, I had the red World Book encyclopedias. I had all that stuff. And I just, was a book nerd growing up. And I also played football, and it was out in the streets. Back in the day, you could, after I cut the yard Saturday morning, I was free to jump on my 3-speed and ride around all day. No cell phones, none of that. And
where in South St. Pete did your parents live?
Down by Lake McGorry.
Okay. That's a beautiful area.
Yeah. And, granddad and grandma lived up where John Hopkins is now.
Got it. Yep.
There's a big gated area that the school bought out the whole neighborhood.
So their house was...
It's where the solar complex is now. They just
I know exactly where that is.
But they just put that in. That had been blank field. I remember stopping there as late as 2 years ago during the campaign just to look at the tree and remember, because nothing had been built there. Yeah. They just bought up the whole neighborhood. But now there's that solar energy complex.
So they lived really close to where their business was.
Oh, yeah, they was.
So, right, because I know they had the business.
Remember, they had to live there. Because that's where blacks were redlined into. So the gas plant on one side, and then they were on the west side of 16th Street.
Got it. Right. So I always speak about the south border being 15th Avenue South, but I don't know how much I knew about the northern border, because I'm always thinking about that Jordan Park area, then going south in that way.
It's actually in city records. You can see the old red line district. So, they taught me the value of education. He also was my Sunday school teacher. He taught the 6th grade. And it's just a value. Look, there's a reason the slaves weren't allowed to read.
Yes.
Right? Education and knowledge is key. So I just believe in that. And I just, almost the same debate we're having now is that there was such an achievement gap. Mm-hmm. And I felt, I could make a difference on the school board. I lost that race, but still never lost that desire to make an impact on education. Mm-hmm. So one of our pillars is youth and education opportunities. We have these pillars for progress that we focus everything on. Even our budget focuses on them. And one is youth and education opportunities. And we really want to expand what we're doing.
You're making me laugh because naturally before coming here as the teens, because I get to have all day, every day with these angels, I said, I'm going to interview the mayor. Do you have any questions? So the first question is, can we tour City Hall? So I said, well, I can make that happen. We don't have to ask him that. I already made a phone call. That's going to happen either next Thursday or the Thursday after. We got that.
Absolutely.
So then the next question, what are these angels? And they're bold. Miss Carla, can you ask him if he's hiring? I said, yes, he's hiring. That's how you're working here. What do you mean?
So let me blow your mind on two things.
Yes.
Yes, we are hiring, and we want to expand what we're doing with youth and employment. So we're adding dollars in our budget. I just signed a budget memo now that's going to go to City Council. The other thing, I don't know if you saw that box that I brought in.
Yes.
So that's a box of stuff because I was actually cleaning out my storage at the house. And I came across this little notebook I had that had the interview with the youth farm. It must have been like 2020 or 19.
You came, I had something called Person of Influence. And I asked you to come be a person of influence at the farm. And so the first time you came was summer of 2019, because that's when I started it. And then I had you return one other time as well.
And I had the notes with the responses from the youth ambassadors as to what they wanted to see. One of them was jobs. Oh, wow. But there were things on there like a skating rink. Yep. One wanted Chick-fil-A.
Yes.
So no, they had, but others wanted like, reducing bullying. I mean, they had really good things on there.
Right.
So that's what I really enjoyed about what you're doing at the youth farm, is not only teaching them about, urban agriculture, but also about, how to move forward in our
real development.
A lot of our kids don't get that, and a lot of our kids are never asked, what do you want to see?
Right. It's empowerment.
Right. And so I make a point, whether it's Great American Teaching or whatever, devoting part of that time to just asking the kid, what's your name?
Right.
What grade are you in? What do you want to be after high school? Or do you want to go to college? Have you started thinking about it? About half of them kind of know. Right. The other half haven't thought about it. Say, well, it's fine not to think about it, but start thinking about it. Mm-hmm. And so many of our young people, it's, I don't know if you call it a blank canvas, but man, if they just had a little bit of support, it would make such a difference in,
That's right.
Not only on their life opportunities, but our community as a whole. Yeah. 10, 20 years.
And just the ability to problem solve. Yeah. Like they saw yesterday when we got 3,200 buckets delivered, and we had maybe 2-hour notice. We're getting these buckets delivered. We didn't even know how they would come. So as soon as the buckets start to arrive in a big enterprise truck, like the largest truck, I think probably 8 or more pallets. They said the entire truck is filled with nothing but buckets. And then I start saying, okay, you grab the drill. We're going to build a containment area. And they're like, how? I'm like, I'll show you how. So then we start talking about counterbalance. How we're going to have to use the weights of these to balance the other weights so they don't tip over. Why aren't we laying them down? Because if we lay it down, we can store less. But then they're out there sweating, moving, repositioning, and you have to think, like, where else do you get these opportunities to solve things every single day? But I'm extremely moved that you still have those notes from them. that says a lot about you and your realness, which I know, but it is refreshing to hear it and to know, like, because it's easy because we get so much stuff. We're bombarded with stuff to be just, okay, well, all right. I have to keep these accolades, but to know that the messages from our teens is a constant reminder to you for what you're here to do. So first Black mayor in our city. Like I always say, like, this is interesting. We talk about having such a progressive city, and here we are with the first Black mayor. Is that a thing for you? Like, not just that you're a mayor personally, but as a Black man, you're a mayor.
Well, it's definitely a thing. Because I believe we all have a purpose that God put us here to perform. But it's not like a trophy, right?
Right.
When I think back to my dad and Seabed Wimbish and other folks who were the first,
yes,
and really had to. I remember the death threats my dad would get.
Yeah.
And if you haven't read 1619 Project, read it. I mean, so much has been sacrificed for me to even have this opportunity that I'm doubly determined to do the right thing while I'm here. Because this isn't just about a title or a legacy. It's about generations of sacrifice that would even allow me to be in this office. And so we're not going to shirk away or shy away from equity or equal opportunity or responsibility and accountability from everybody. Because to me, I believe that's why I'm in this position now. That's what we ran on.
Right.
And so despite all the madness at anti-woke and all this other stuff, we ran on inclusive progress. That was our thing.
Right.
And every part of this city heard the reasons why that path is the best path for our city. Acknowledging our history, acknowledging the gas plan and the discrimination and the promises that were made to the gas plant community. If you acknowledge it and all the other things that came out through the structural racism study, how folks have been excluded from opportunities systematically.
Right.
If you have a knowledge base that everybody understands that, then you have a solid foundation moving forward. If you don't have a solid foundation, it's like a building, right? You're building on top of a faulty foundation. Because if you look at the gas plan as just a blank slate without understanding the sacrifice that went into that, you'd have a different standard for what you're going to require to come out of that process. But having grown up there, our church was there, my granddad's woodyard was there, 1,000 people were there, businesses. All those things were uprooted in the name of progress. And so going forward, the development has to be reparative in terms of economics. And really all four of the groups that responded, but particularly Hines and the Rays and Sugar Hill as well, really focused on that and had ways to rebuild the ecosystem that existed there in terms of business opportunities and community opportunities.
What percentage of that project do you think we will see happen over the next 4 years?
So we're still in negotiations. I'm hoping to have an announcement in the next several weeks, but the negotiations are going very well.
Okay.
Because we laid out in the RFP what we were expecting, what we wanted to see in terms of minority business opportunities, affordable and workforce housing, a tangible tribute to the Black business ecosystem that existed previously, in a way that rebuild that and sustain it. And all those things were in the response. And so now we're negotiating the term sheet for those things. But this will be a 15 to 20 year project.
Right. That's
in phases.
That's why I said percentage, because I know what it's essentially building a mini city in a city.
It's the largest opportunity that really in the state of Florida, but absolutely in Pinellas County and St. Petersburg for this kind of development. And that's why it has to benefit the entire city, while at the same time, there's no statute of limitations on those promises from 35 years ago. So when the promise was made, this will be about jobs, this will be about opportunities for Black businesses, that has to now finally come to fruition.
Wow, you made me think about when I sat down with a prior mayor when he was running for re-election. That's all I asked for. I only asked, and everybody else that was with me said, "You're not asking for anything for yourself? Like, if it's for the community, it's for me." So I wanted to see the community benefits agreements be lifted to ensure, because I know that that's the direct path to uplifting businesses within the community. So having those measurable things within a development as large as this is so crucial to changing all this generational wealth that was essentially stopped, blocked, removed, and pushed to the side.
The ecosystem, I call it, was disrupted. So take my granddad, for example. I always look at this map behind it. So you see what the little yellow stickies are.
Yep.
So the one on the bottom is approximately where my granddad's woodyard was. It was just north of that.
Okay.
At 5th and 16th.
Yes.
But think about, you've got this whole community of residences, businesses, churches, all within this defined area. And then when the interstate came through, that's why that sticky's there. My granddad and other businesses had to move. And they had to move away from that concentrated group of consumers, right?
Yeah.
And so the place he moved to didn't have the traffic, didn't have the access.
Right.
And this happened to businesses all over. His sister owned a restaurant across the street, same thing. When you move them away from that cluster of activity and foot traffic, it has an impact.
And I think we also went out to other places because we were restricted from doing that, and no one came in. So that's what created this death of communities. Right. Intentional, deliberate.
Oh, the interstate was definitely intentional.
It's not unique to St. Petersburg.
Not at all. And that's why there are federal funds now to try to restore that, communities that have been disrupted. But if you think of the gas plant, there were two disruptions. First was the interstate. And that not only disrupted the community around 16th Street, but it also separated the Deuces as well. Right? Yep. And then later on, you had the gas plant, which was a larger disruption, which just dispersed the entire community. Wow. So you have to understand that.
What year is this map from?
That's a pretty current one because it has the...
Yeah, I see the trop.
Yeah, and I'm trying to get one that's like 1970 or so.
Yeah, that would be...
hard that is to do.
Wow.
Well, it's pre-Google and we're kind of spoiled. Right. Pull up anything.
Somebody has it in a file somewhere.
We'll get it.
So the game plan is trying to get this moving so we could see some impact, so we can at least see the beginnings of it taking shape for the community.
We definitely will. The game plan is to get the agreement on the table, get it signed by both parties. We have other partners like the Pinellas County Commission, of course, City Council for St. Pete has to approve it. We want to get that done this year, and I'm optimistic we will. The other piece is if we're not successful for some reason, and I have every indication that we will be, their lease is up in 2027, and then all that land reverts back to the city.
Okay.
So I wanted to bring certainty to this issue after so many years of discussion, and we're headed there, and I think it's going to be on the preferred path of with the Rays and Heinz's apart, because you need someone at the table to help fund all these things. If we just held onto the land, as some folks are suggesting now, my question to them is, okay, how do we fund the housing? How do we fund the minority business support if you don't have this private sector partner that's actually putting money in the game. We've had it for 35 years and nothing has happened. So just hold on. I think we're going to have good news for you shortly.
So forget the iPhone user part. Forget that part for a moment, because I don't even know how people just use phones that they have to renew every 6 months.
They don't run out of memory though.
But oh, it's a cold.
Did you
office,
tell your listeners
the
that
office
story?
is cold, y'all. So Harley Davidson. Is it Harley? It's a Harley?
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So I said to you, please, Mayor, we can't have the mayor riding around on a motorcycle. We need you. We need you. Why must you continue this motorcycle scaring us?
First of all, it's not scary. Val Demings?
Yes.
She rides the same Harley that I do.
Really?
Harley Road King. I don't think hers is a special, but she rides a Harley Road King. We met the mayor, ambassador from Israel, a couple weeks ago.
It's a thing?
He rides a Harley. I was up in Columbus, Ohio, with the U.S. Conference of Mayors. No, this was in Austin. I'm sorry, in Austin earlier this year. With the Outside the Berg tour with the St. Pete Chamber. Okay. Sat down talking with the mayor of Austin. He rides a Harley.
Well, dang.
So it's a thing.
Well, dang.
It's definitely a thing.
Well, dang.
But look, that's something I always. Remember I told you I used to take my 3-speed out.
Yes.
After I cut the yard and ride around South St. Pete. So I always loved two wheels. We used to jump. Make a little ramp.
What does Donna really say about this?
What does Donna say about it?
Yes.
My wife, Donna?
Yes.
Okay.
That Donna.
So I can tell you. Let me tell you how I got on the Harley. Always wanted to do it. Mom said no. Back in the day, they had mopeds. She was like, no, you can't ride it. I'm like, Mom, I want to buy it.
First of all, your mom is gorgeous. I'm gonna put a picture of his mom so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Like,
she tells me not
stunningly
to say her age,
beautiful woman.
Yeah.
Stunningly beautiful woman. Yes.
Yeah, she'll kill me if I say her age, but
she got the good genes. She's
her
gorgeous.
whole family does.
Yeah. I bet.
She's still hitting the Y. But so bicycle, Mom said no to the moped, and I'd always be, whenever I see a Harley, or a motorcycle, I'm like, man, that's it. And then we had a friend, one of my friends passed, like in 2016 or so. And I remember my daughters, I see a Harley and say, oh, man, I wish I could. She's like, Dad, what are you waiting for? These are my daughters. She said, you don't want to be on your deathbed sometime and say, I wish I had. So in 2017, I don't know how I got there, but I signed up for the intro class for motorcycles. Yes. And it ended up being at my daughter's high school.
Oh, wow.
It was a weird thing because Northeast High used to be the track where they would give the class. Yep. Because the Harley dealer was right down the street on 54, Bert's Harley Davidson. So I ended up taking it there. First time I sat on it and they turned it on, I was absolutely hooked. Oh, wow. That rumble, I mean, there's nothing like it. And that Harley rumble, I should say. So I'm on my third Harley now. And, after a tough day, I just hop on it and, down on Pinellas Point or maybe out to Tierra Verde. Well, just be careful. I'm careful. Please and thank you. Please and thank you. And then so what was the one thing, if you were to say this one thing, because you have been county commissioner for 20 years, you have the experience. What's one thing that surprised you about the change of being the mayor versus being a county commissioner? So something that may have stumped you. I always do my homework. So, and a lot, on the commission, I work with 3 or 4 mayors, Mayor Baker, Foster, Kreisman, very closely. And they gave me a lot of insights. And I talked to Mayor Buckhorn and Castor and Buddy Dyer, a ton of folks as a candidate, just to see, get their insights. So they really prepared me for kind of what to expect, even, working with council and those kinds of things. But I think what amplifies that is the place that St. Pete is in now. and kind of the turning point that we're at. We're not Sleepy Little St. Pete anymore, and folks are seeing that. And you can see how rapidly the city's changing.
Yes.
And in some cases, not for the good, in terms of affordability and other things. So I think it's just the focus of having a strong mayor that can make some decisions independently, combined with St. Pete's kind of evolution happening at the same time. And I heard from so many folks during the campaign, we love St. Pete. We've been here. It's changing too quickly. We don't want to lose our authenticity. Right. I heard a lot of, we're going to lose affordability. Can't afford to stay here. And then on the other hand, there are folks saying, that's just a market, go free market. If folks can't afford it, new folks will come in.
Wow.
So that's definitely not where I am.
Right.
And that's why we talked about inclusive progress, that we don't lose what made us a great city, and that we don't force out people that help make the city great. We don't have to be, Fort Lauderdale.
And I remember you and I having conversations about affordable housing before. And
Absolutely.
What I talk about is when I hear about the history of the city, what I loved about that area you pointed out is the doctors lived next to the housekeepers. So the kids got to commingle together.
Absolutely.
So it was just a better sense of community. It's part of what's important about the work I'm doing is this. Everybody's like, what do you mean you want to build a clay oven? Yes. It makes sense.
That's
right?
One thing that was lost. And like you said, because all African Americans had to live there, you had a doctor next to a laborer.
Yes.
And there really was no difference. No one was treated different. And you had a whole bunch of aunts and uncles and grandparents who helped raise all the kids.
That's right.
I'll tell the story as I'm walking to church from granddad's. If I do something wrong,
that's right. I was just on to the kids
not
about
only
this.
Is Miss Brown going to give you? She's going to call. Right. I'm going to get in trouble at the church. Then when my parents pick me up, I'm going to get in trouble again. That's the kind of community we have to rebuild.
That's right.
And so I see the gas plant development funding programs that rebuild that sense of community.
That's so important.
And the same thing in terms of economics. So it's not, we are trying to find someone who's displaced, but we're trying to rebuild the programs with sustainable funding that help rebuild that sense of community, both economics and for our youth. And I'm excited about that.
I think, and also this idea of modeling. So I know for the teens, like I said, the question was, can we tour City Hall? Absolutely. I think part of them wanting to tour City Hall is acknowledging that, first of all, I have the most diverse group of teens I've ever had. So that's exciting because we talked within ourselves about what is diversity and why is this beneficial to us? There's foods, there's flavoring. I mean, they've prepared, sweet potato. They prepared two different groups. One prepared it sweet and the other prepared it savory. And if there's only one group of people with one ideals, then it's prepared one way. And
so where's my pesto though?
Huh? Oh man.
You didn't bring it.
We got to get you the pesto. Because not only, so we do collard green pesto, but we returned to the original pesto we were making off of Cuban oregano. And I have people there from Raymond James. They're like, what is this? So we're going to return to our Cuban oregano pesto, and kids are learning more about just health benefits of food. Like we're growing. So we have incidents and it's like, no, just go get some aloe and put it on it. Your stomach is hurting. Okay, go over here and grab it. And so it's a different mindset. But I tell them every day you wake up, we started something where they have to every single day. It's part of their job to put in our group chat a positive quote, and understanding that quote is not just for you, it's for everybody else who gets to read it, for me who get to read the quote. So now we're building such a base of teens absolutely every single day looking for positive quotes. And so I call it like this infusion of positivity that we're pushing out into our teens, like it's something we must do. And then I said, hey, why don't y'all think about pulling a quote, if it's not yours, it's one that you like, and share with your parents. I'm like, they're going to think you want something, but just share with them. because like we have to get our house in order and straight, and then let's push out everything that we get to be fortunate enough to have and do. This office looks official. I'm looking at the American flag, state flag, the seal. I'm gonna make sure I take some pictures and share with you guys. Was this paint blue when you got here, or you changed the bottom paint?
So
to blue?
The furniture was already here.
Okay.
Of course, we brought in all the paintings and the plaques. I think we did have it painted blue. I don't know what the color was before that. We had a deputy mayor at that time who handled that, Stephanie.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. So what are those hats up there? One is Rowdy's and one is St. Pete. What's that one?
That's City of St. Pete.
That's the City of St. Pete hat?
One of our crew members, stormwater, pavement, and traffic. Yeah,
people forget about these important parts of the city. How many employees do we have?
About 3,600.
You're a big time CEO. That's what this is.
It's all of that, yes.
So I'm looking forward to not just the kids meeting you when you come to visit us, but them coming here. I'll make sure the day that we come is the day that you are here, so that they can experience what we're getting to experience right now. So I want to thank you. I'm going to let them know pesto is our entry into City Hall. I'm going to let you get back to your day. I'm going to thank you for this dedicated time that we were able to spend. I'm hopeful for everyone else that you'll get a couple of bits and bites to chew on as you move about your week and your day. And until next time, please remember the value of connections.